You know, don't you, that feeling deep inside, that quiet awareness, that undeniable sense that no matter what happens, you're in control. Because the world moves, people react, emotions rise and fall, like waves crashing against the shore, and yet the shore remains, solid, unshaken, timeless. And you notice, don't you, how people expect you to play their game. They expect you to react, to flinch, to shrink, to engage on their level. But what happens when you don't? What happens when instead of pushing back, you pause? Instead of defending, you question. Because people, they build their beliefs on shaky foundations. And all it takes is a single question to send the whole structure crumbling down. That's just the way things are. Oh, always, every time, no exceptions. You can't do that. Who says? What if you could? What changes then? You're wrong. Wrong according to whom? By what measure? And something happens in that moment, doesn't it? That flicker in their eyes, that pause, that hesitation. Because the moment you make them question, the moment you plant the seed of doubt, something shifts. The more they try to hold on to their certainty, the more it slips through their fingers. And isn't it fascinating how people think they know? How they cling to their opinions, their judgments, their assumptions, never realizing how fragile they are. Because when you stand firm, when you hold your ground, when you let their words pass through you, like the wind through the trees, something changes. They expect you to react. They expect you to engage. They expect you to get emotional. But you don't. You simply breathe, smile, and wait. And that's power, isn't it? Because people, they don't remember what you say. They remember how you make them feel. And when they walk away from you, they don't remember the argument. They remember the shift. That feeling in their gut. That tiny voice whispering, something isn't right. Something doesn't add up. And once that thought is planted, it grows. Because that is how the mind works, isn't it? Once a crack appears, it spreads. Once a question is asked, it demands an answer. Once a belief is shaken, it can never fully stand the same way again. And you see it happen now, don't you? That deep, subtle realization that you don't need to fight. You don't need to convince. You don't need to prove anything, because people will judge you. People will doubt you. People will throw their emotions at you, like a child throwing a tantrum, desperate for you to react. But you don't. Because you already know. Their words, they're just noise. Their attacks, they're just echoes of their own insecurities. And when they see you're unshaken, something inside them shifts. Because your presence is a mirror, a reflection of everything they cannot control. And in that reflection, they see themselves. And they're forced to question. And that's influence, isn't it? Not pushing, not forcing, not arguing. Just standing. Unshakable, untouchable, unstoppable. And the stronger you hold your ground, the more the world bends to meet you. And what happens when you start living this way? What happens when you stop overthinking, stop doubting, stop scrambling for the right words, and instead you just know? Because certainty, it isn't something you find. It's something you create. It's something you embody. And the moment you realize this, everything changes, because the world isn't what they say it is. The world is what you decide it is. And isn't that an interesting thing to think about now? Or maybe later. I wonder, what will you notice first? Because you've already started to notice, haven't you? That shift, that awareness, that realization that something inside you is different now. Stronger, clearer. Because the more you think about it, the more you don't even have to think about it. Because there was a time, wasn't there, when words could affect you, when people's judgments, they seemed real, when their opinions had weight. But now they're just echoes, whispers of someone else's reality, and you. You don't live in someone else's reality. Because whose reality is more real? Theirs, built on assumptions, reactions, fleeting emotions. Or yours, grounded, certain, unshakable. And when you hold that, when you truly hold that, watch what happens. Because people, they expect resistance. They expect conflict. They expect you to meet their energy, match their emotions, play their game. But what happens when you don't? What happens when they push and you just smile? What happens when they attack and you simply breathe? And isn't it fascinating how the mind works? How people think they know. How they cling to their opinions, like a drowning man clutching at the air. But what happens when they realise they've nothing to hold on to? Because when you ask the right questions, everything changes. That's just the way it is. Always, every time, no exceptions. You're wrong. Compared to what? What if this is just another way of being right? You're not good enough. By whose measure? What happens if that belief no longer serves you? And just like that, the foundation cracks. Because their words, they were never about you. Their emotions, their attacks, their judgments, they were never about you. They were always about them. Their fears, their insecurities, their need to control a world that they don't even understand. And when they see you standing there, calm, composed, untouchable, something inside them shifts. Because you don't play by their rules. And that is what real influence is, isn't it? Not arguing, not proving, not convincing. Just holding. Holding your presence. Holding your frame. Holding your reality so completely, so undeniably, that the world bends to meet you. And you've seen this before, haven't you? Those rare people who step into a room and everything changes. The air feels different. The energy shifts. Not because they try to control, but because they don't need to. And you realise now, don't you, that this is who you've always been. You don't chase. You don't prove. You don't react. Because your presence is enough. Your reality is enough. And the more you know this, the more they feel it. Because they don't remember what you say. They remember how you make them feel. And how do you feel when they can't shake you? How did they feel when their words lose power? How did they feel when they realised that you are different? And isn't that an interesting thing to think about now? Or maybe later. I wonder, what'll you notice first?